Why do I care? This is a question that we subconsciously ask ourselves when engaging with a story, and it can be answered in different ways, and one way is by observing the characters. Sometimes writers will use a device called backstory to enhance our relationship with the character for the purpose of attaching certain emotions to them by exploring their past, hoping that those emotional connections carry over to the present narrative. There are plenty of other uses of backstory, like establishing the setting or if the writer is trying to world build. But today we're going to focus on the use of backstory for the purpose of establishing and or developing characters in anime. Now, what makes a good backstory? As anime fans, I think we've seen memes poking fun at how tragic and exaggerated some of these characters' past are, and it's kinda hard not to end up saying, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Obviously, this is not something unique to anime, but it's undoubtedly the medium where this trope stands out the most. And to be honest, that's perfectly okay, and it's something to embrace when consuming anime. And while it is known for its excessive tragedy when delving into character past, I also think there are some remarkable examples unique to the medium that honestly heightens the viewing experience altogether. And in this video, I want to explore some of those examples and why they are, in my opinion, great uses of backstory for a character exploration. And before I get to my two main examples, I'd like to quickly mention certain backstories from other shows that I personally thought were done very well. Firstly, I'll start with Naruto. Not the biggest fan of the show, but anyone who watched it, especially when it was airing, will tell you how euphoric it was to finally witness Itachi's backstory. I thought the execution of this backstory was done pretty well and gave us a pretty solid understanding to the motive for one of Naruto's most ambiguous characters. Cowboy Bebop, episode 5. It's only like a 3-minute clip, but through the music and visual cues, it provides a small yet strong emotional foundation for the show's main character. I think it's a perfect example of using visual and audible aid instead of dialogue to pique viewer engagement with the character, while also providing some context into the overarching story. So props to them for doing that. And the most recent example is My Hero Academia. Twice's backstory was an examination on dissociative identity disorder and was an excellent way to showcase the vulnerability of superpowered individuals outside of fighting and heroic duties. It was a way to highlight the rationale behind this character and why he chose to join the League of Supervillains, giving us a much needed look into the very human side of the antagonist. In all of anime, I think Yoshihiro Togashi is a god when it comes to writing backstory, and his first major shonen, Yu Hakusho, is no exception. I think I could have chosen any one of Togashi's villains, but right now I want to focus on Yu Hakusho's second biggest villain, Sensui.
Sensui and his partner Itsuki were skilled and the demons weak. They caught the club by surprise and cornered them. It was perhaps too much by surprise, as Sensui saw something he never should have seen. A ritualistic party they called the Feast of Human Vices. These privileged humans were toying with the demons they'd ensnared, torturing them with no motivation other than their own twisted pleasure.
I think Sensui has one of the most interesting and disturbing pasts I've ever seen, and pretty dark compared to other shonens. Now the thing is that Togashi didn't make Sensui's past dark just for the sake of doing it, but as a means to create a backdrop to compare the main character Yusuke. And just like Yusuke, Sensui was a spirit detective tasked with killing off any demons that entered the human world, initially scouted by the ruler of all the spirit world, Koenma, kinda like a god figure in Yu Yu Hakusho. Sensui's natural talent to sense demons and his hardline emotions made him a more than ideal candidate for the task of being spirit detective. Demons are evil, so we have to destroy them. That's the perspective in which Sensui viewed the world, inhering a dangerously black and white definition of morality. And the question must be asked, what happens when a person like that sees gray? Lots of gray. And that gray came in the form of an event called the Feast of Human Vices, humanity at its most inhumane. The cruelty exposed on humans by demons in Sensui's experience was nothing compared to the horrors inflicted on demons by humans that night. White became black and black became white. For one man, the whole world flipped upside down. The same for Sensui's views. Now humans are evil, so they must be destroyed. His witnessing of humans at their most vile and monstrous against the very demons he was supposed to kill generated a reaction that was so raw that it would challenge our notion of what's right and wrong. The beauty of this reveal is that it forces some amount of empathy to rile up in the viewer, even if we are completely opposed to the heinous actions of Sensui. Unquestionably, Sensui is evil, but saying all that, can we really say that his newfound motivations and plans did not originate from a very human response to a very tragic and horrific event? It's a question that's equally disgusting as it is equally human, and it's one of the reasons why I love his backstory. And it's not only because of the shock value or how empathy inducing it is, but also because it helps build a character foil to the show's main character Yusuke. Like Sensui, Yusuke is a spirit detective, and I think it's fair to say at this point in the show, he's seen his fair share of tragedy by the hands of humans and demons, just like Sensui. The only difference is the path that they took and the way they view humanity after all these experiences. Yusuke believed that the world was already a messed up place, regardless if it's humans or demons that cause suffering, and this worldview did not allow him to seriously consider that there were those that truly cared for him or believed he had the power to protect those people. Through all the tribulations he had to endure, Yusuke learned how to cherish the people in the world that he cared for, and realized that life was more than just getting into fights. He slowly acknowledged that having people care for you is not a burden, and it is a form of strength that should be used to protect them. And this maturation by Yusuke is directly contrasted against Sensui's perspective on all of humanity. And Sensui's backstory contrasts with Yusuke's so well because it gives us a what-if scenario if it were Yusuke in the shoes of Sensui that fateful night. And I think the interaction between the two is a great way to sow the seeds of skepticism in the audience.
You know, Yusuke, if you continue this work as Spirit World's agent, you'll eventually share my fate. The things you see grow a canker on your soul and you cannot heal the sore. Do you want to know why? Because the canker keeps growing and consumes you. The evil you're chasing becomes who you are. Just picture where you were a year ago before any of your noble detective work began. Would you ever have imagined murdering another human being? Now your team's killed 3.
Yusuke, like the audience, might deny it initially, but all you have to do is go back and see the events that unfolded in Sensui's past and the path that he took in life. And I think we'll see that there's some authenticity in his claims to Yusuke. Just look at the facts. The same person that recruited Sensui is the same one that chose Yusuke. The organization that was responsible for the Feast of Human Vices was heavily involved in both characters' lives. Everything is lined up for Yusuke to follow in the steps of Sensui, his foil, and we as the audience must challenge our own faith in Yusuke's morality, knowing that the troubled life of Sensui potentially lies ahead for Yusuke as well. It is this dramatic tension that makes the Chapter Black arc so interesting between the characters and the audience, and in addition to being a great backstory, it makes Sensui one of my all-time favorite villains. There are a lot of videos on YouTube breaking down Hunter x Hunter theme by theme, myself included, but one part of the show I think that gets overlooked is how Togashi is able to craft backstories for a lot of his characters. The way he handles themes of humanity and incorporates them into the stories of his characters is nothing short of genius in my opinion. It can be the smallest, most forgettable character or one of the main cast. Togashi will make sure to give each one a solid groundwork that develops them beyond what we expect. And most of the time, Togashi lets their personalities and relationships with other characters speak for themselves. In particular, he crafts backstories that are rich in detail and intrigue with subtle nuances that dive deep into certain characters' motives and their true nature. I can go on about the numerous backstories Togashi's established, another one being Komigi's reason for hesitating to check Mariom and Gungi, but maybe that's another video. For today, I want to focus on one character in particular, one that we don't see much of, by the name of Gyro, the former underground ruler of the NGL. And I remember being so thrown off on my first watch when this flashback of a seemingly random character kinda came out of nowhere. To be quite honest, I think this is Togashi just flexing on the audience for fun, but at the same time, I still think the backstory of Gyro serves some purpose. Gyro is a character that we never see, and yet we are given almost half an episode long backstory of someone who we don't even know looks like. To say this is unusual is an understatement. If the anime had completely taken this out, Hunter x Hunter would have stayed pretty much the same, and no narrative beats would have been compromised. And the name and character of Gyro would have been forgotten quite quickly since he was only mentioned a few times before. So what is the purpose, other than foreshadowing a very distant future in the series? And the answer is nothing. There is no reason for this backstory other than to tell us the world is a nihilistic place through the eyes of Gyro. The universe doesn't give a damn about me. My father told me not to make trouble for others, so to avoid any inconvenience to himself. Others meant humans. Don't make trouble for humans. I must not be human. There's nothing really to retain that will help you understand the primary story of Hunter x Hunter. Rather, it is a simple tale with a string of messages that you as a viewer must conclude from it yourself. If you really want to dive into the themes of Gyro's past and relate them to the overarching themes of the Chimera Ant arc, you can do that. But I don't think that was Togashi's purpose when creating the story. I think he just wanted to tell a story about one child who grew up into a spiteful person, and how that spite manifested into pure hatred for everything. The sheer unorthodoxy and sort of randomness does catch you off guard, maybe even questioning the author's motive for putting Gyro's story in the first place, and I think it takes a certain analysis of Togashi's whole body of work to truly understand why he put it there. If you think that it was a waste of time and also think that it's some pretentious nonsense, that's fine. You don't need to analyze every part of a show to love it or even criticize it. For me, however, when discussing Hunter x Hunter, even in its most out-of-the-blue, surreal moments, there's always some thought-provoking ideas Togashi wants to explore, and his method of using intricate backstories to reflect those ideas is nothing short of captivating, to me at least. And the goal of this video was not to really show you how pretentious I am or how much I think Hunter x Hunter is better than other anime. I just wanted to depict what good backstories can be like, an example of an author who uses backstory in a very unique way. And I know there's so many anime and backstories that I missed with certain characters that are so great in other anime. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comment below. I would love to hear it. And with that, I would like to conclude the video. See you next time. Peace.